Hello, Mayor, Council members, City staff and members of the public. My name is Alex Hamilton, your Fire Chief. Today before you we have a 2024 Oxnard Fire Department update, as well as a statutorily required resolution regarding prevention inspections, which we'll get into as a part of this presentation. So first of all, very quickly, just wanted to touch on our numbers in 2024. It was another busy year for the city. So we responded to nearly 22,000 calls for service. It was only a small increase from last year, thankfully, although our unit responses went up a little bit more than that. So you can see there just over 34,000 unit responses. And really the difference there is that some calls just require a single engine to respond to it. But then if we have a residential structure fire example, you're going to have 4 engines, 2 ladder trucks, 2 battalion chiefs. And so that's where the difference between calls for service and unit responses for calls. You can see there were 763 fires, of which 125 were structure fires. And then still, we have the vast majority of our calls are related to medical incidents, and you can see there on that last tile. Just for the benefit, particularly with new council members, but the fire department is organised as you can see that we sort of have 2 sides of the fire department. We have the operations side and then support services. So operations is what you know traditionally of a fire department with engines and ladder trucks, lights and sirens. But then the support services side, which we're going to dig into here a little bit more, that covers all the business administration, prevention activities, training, all those kinds of things. And so the next couple of slides, we're going to touch on a little bit more on the prevention side from what you can see here in this organizational chart. So fire prevention, you can see there the 5 tiles of responsibility that they have under their purview. So enforcing fire and life safety codes, hazardous materials regulations, which is done by our Cooper or Certified Unified Program Agency, construction review and inspections, and then obviously arson and fire investigation, and finally public education. So this is where the resolution that's attached to this council agenda item comes from. Senate Bill 1205. Senate Bill 1205 came into effect after the ghost ship fire up in Oakland, a tragic fire that took the lives of 36 individuals. And it sort of mandated certain things. And one of the things it mandated was reporting to the elected body once a year how we're doing the state mandated inspections. So this is where we're at. So for residential inspections, so this is multi-unit apartments or hotels, motels, as you can see there, and including residential care facilities. So our compliance rate for 2024 was 38%. So we're able to get to just over a third of those residences, R1, R2 inspections. We are still struggling with the amount of bandwidth we have in terms of staffing, but also there are many other responsibilities that the Prevention Bureau has responsibility for. So that is something that we're trying to prioritize the most important elements when it comes to life safety and those kinds of things. So you can see here the other state mandated inspections as a part of this Senate Bill 1205, which is educational facilities. All of those were inspected in 2024. So a couple of other highlights in the enforcement of fire and life safety codes. So we have nearly 6,500 identified occupancies according to city records. So there was 766 that were inspected in 2024, and then another 3,200 with no record of inspection. We are slowly working through the process of identifying which represent the highest hazards, so we can focus in on those, because these, while not part of that SB 1205 reporting mandate, obviously still very important. And whenever we do these fire and life safety code inspections, we just take it as an opportunity to educate folks on where the hazards are and why they need to be corrected, so that we can make sure that everyone is safe within the city, whether it's residents, employees, or businesses. We want to try and prevent the next big fire from occurring, and that's the point of these inspections. As I mentioned, hazardous material regulation. This is for facilities that store hazardous materials in reportable quantities. And so Cooper, you see there, that stands for Certified Unified Program Agency. That name came from the state, and I know it doesn't really mean much, but that's we have a Cooper agency. It is an enterprise fund, so it exists based on the fees it collects from the businesses that do have reportable quantities of hazardous materials. So 856 businesses are identified, and they are up for a biannual inspection. So you can see there, 778 total inspections were completed for 2024. Construction review and inspections. This is an area where there's new construction or modifications to an existing structure. We go through and make sure that those construction plan checks meet the fire code and are done safely. And so both plan checks and then construction permit inspections are done, as well as annual fire inspections. That's part of what is we've previously covered that are identified in SB 1205. Last year was actually a big year for us in terms of arson arrests. Having 10 arrests, we did have a number of, well, as you can see there from those 10 arrests, a number of folks going around the city setting fires that had the potential to be very dangerous to the public. And so our investigators work very closely with Oxnard Police Department personnel to identify those suspects and ultimately make those 10 arrests. So you can see there was 94 fires were investigated, of which about a third of them were deemed to be incendiary in nature. And then we continue to have issues around smoke detectors excuse me, a lack of working smoke detectors when we respond to residential house fires. And so we are working as hard as ever to get smoke alarms into folks' homes to keep them safe. You reduce your risk of injury or death by having one working smoke detector in your house. You reduce that by half. They are a lifesaver. And so we have more additional grant money, and so we are working through. We will be installing another 5,000 of these smoke detectors over the next 18 months, and we're looking forward to more partnerships with the American Red Cross, more partnerships with our faith community to get as many of these installed as possible. We can see there in 2024, we made 2,813 individuals safer, and nearly 750 homes were made safer from that program. So we getting a lot of work done, but there's still much work to go on those installations. I just wanted to highlight this, that we're coming to the end of our 5-year strategic plan. There's still more work that we want to accomplish within that plan for this year before this year is out. But we will be looking to start building a strategic plan for the next 5 years. Part of that is good for us is you can get lost in the day-to-day work sometimes. And so having a strategic plan and having a bit of a roadmap just gives us sort of, lets the agency and our residents know where we're trying to take the fire department over the next 5 years. But also it gives us a little bit of a roadmap on things that we need to accomplish while we're doing the day-to-day. One of the other things I wanted to highlight was AB 1168. So this was legislation sponsored by Assemblymember Bennett. This was all in our efforts to improve ambulance service to our community. And after a 2-year legislative process, which we went through both the Assembly and the Senate, and got it through all the way to the governor's desk, with very little opposition. But ultimately, the bill was vetoed in September of last year, which was a pretty devastating setback after all the work that we put into it. But part of the process of putting all that work into 1168 was providing a great education to our board of supervisor representatives, and so I think they see the need, have recognized the need for changes and reforms to the way the current system operates, and that's where they're currently going through building a request for proposal document to outline what ambulance service and pre-hospital emergency care will look like for the next 10 years. And certainly we've been representing the City of Oxnard's interests in those discussions as they're drafting a new RFP document. So I'm hopeful, even though we had a big setback in this veto from the governor, that we have strong support from the supervisors to see some meaningful change in the way these services are delivered. And for us, that means equitable ambulance service, regardless of your zip code or your socioeconomic circumstance. So we're looking forward to that. So some of the challenges that we're still confronting, our call volume continues to go up, and our call volume increases we just can't match with increases in personnel. So we need to look at how we can respond to these perhaps more efficiently, or are we going to get to a point where there's some calls that we just don't make a response to? Obviously, if there's a threat to life, property, or environment, we will be responding. But maybe there's some calls that we can say that that's a non-emergency issue, or we can there's a better agency to deal with the calls. That's some of the things we're going to have to look through as we go through these new challenges. Lithium-ion batteries continue to provide challenges to us. Now we're not only in sort of scooters and e-bikes and EV vehicles, but now energy storage facilities. Our issue with lithium-ion batteries is that when they become unstable, they can become incredibly dangerous. And then the other issue that we have is when they become unstable and they go into a thermal runaway, it creates an incredibly toxic environment, not just for the residents that might be around that thermal runaway, but obviously for our responders as well. Climate adaptation continues to be a challenge, as we've seen with the fires, most recently the devastating fires, the Eden and Palisades fires, that we lost so many structures. And so we are looking at new requirements that will be coming to the city in terms of home hardening and protecting homes from the wildfire threat. Thankfully, the threat is relatively low for the city, but obviously with the way the climate has been changing, that threat is slowly rising. So it is something we need to work through. Supply chain issues continue to be problematic. Building new, we're going to need to order new capital apparatus in the new budget year if council approves, because some of those apparatus now are 4 years from the time that you order to the time you get delivered. It's a 4-year wait time. It never used to be that way, and there's more I can talk to on that front, but unfortunately we are struggling with those supply chain issues. As you can see here, this is just a little bit of a reference. You can see how our calls for service have been just steadily rising, and will continue. It's primarily driven by population growth, but we also saw something of a rise that hasn't really tapered off from the beginning of COVID to now. And so you can sort of see it bumped up a little bit between 2020 and 2023. It was a little more static in this last 12 months. But I don't see it going backwards anytime soon, unless we decide there's certain calls we're not going to respond to. And so then to look ahead, some of the things that we're looking at for 2025 is we are continually challenged by cancer issues in the fire service. So Oxnard Fire Department is now participating in a number of research studies. We're also starting a research study on behavioral health and trying to reduce the instances and severity of issues around post-traumatic stress disorder. So we'll see where that one goes. We are in the process of doing designs to replace 3 of our fire stations. We have a new emergency manager, excuse me, working on disaster preparedness training for our staff and the city. And then one of the big things that we're excited about too is the workforce development opportunities and EMS core that we've just started this year with young adults that maybe grew up with some amount of adversity that are now able to learn how to become EMTs and hopefully be future firefighters with the Oxnard Fire Department. So that grant program just got stood up here this just earlier this year, and so looking forward to that. Engine replacements, as I just talked about, and then we're continuing with our smoke detector installations. And so the last thing I just wanted to touch on is the enormous amount of pride I have in working for Oxnard Fire Department, representing the awesome employees that we have working for us here in this city. We are looking forward to a recognition and promotion event here in just a couple of weeks. As a part of that recognition, we're actually going to be awarding 2 Medals of Valor for the first time this department has ever done that. So we're very excited about that, and hoping to see lots of council there on March 13th. So with that, I appreciate everybody's time and open to any questions anyone might have. Thank you.